Next game, we got Cardinals Chargers. You wanted to talk about part of another Monday night doubleheader. This one, ESPN Plus exclusive. So we'll have to fire up that one. But interesting matchups on both sides. The Chargers are coming in as 2.5-point favorites, 43.5-point total. Really strong defensive numbers, and I think as you want to hit on, weak slate of opposing offenses they face so far.
Yeah. First off, I just got to say, we had a 7:30 Monday night game. Why the timing is just driving me insane. Make this a 7:30 game, stagger them, watch a half at a time, just a disaster. 8:15 and 9. I mean, come on. Anyway, back to the regular scheduled content. I'm honestly curious what you make of the Chargers defense, because they stopped the run extremely well so far this season. All the metrics look great, but then you think about and this is funny, that the only competent run offense that they face is the Panthers, basically, and this was the Chiefs with Carson Steele. But I don't see the Chargers defense as I'm just not buying them. Maybe I'm too strong on my prior. They haven't faced any great offenses, and I think we're pretty sure of what the Cardinals are. And I think they are particularly sensitive. I'm curious your take on this, to their ability to generate the run game. I think they are reliant on getting that going a bit more than some other teams. But I just don't see this Chargers run defense. We're sure, if you look at all the metrics, they're gonna turn out good. But I'm not sure that's not just a function of poor opponents. And when you look at what the Chargers want to do on offense, which is run the ball a ton, though they did pass last week kind of randomly, way above expectation. They want to run the ball a lot. Sure, Arizona's vulnerable, but we've talked about this a lot. This concept of you basically need everything to go right when you are so reliant on your ground game. And when things do go right, it's extremely low variance, because you are just controlling time of possession, gaining yards at will, but that can stop very, very quickly. If you're gaining 4 yards at a time, at some point, one of these plays is going to go for -2 yards. You're going to get called for a holding penalty. And when I look at how I would play the Chargers kind of winning, is you want to rely on Justin Herbert and give the ball to him as often as possible. But that's not how they're operating their offense. And I think there's so much fragility week to week in being so run heavy, especially when they're not the Ravens, right? This is not a world beating run offense. It's J.K. Dobbins coming off major injuries. He's broken some big ones, but I think this is an offense that's given a little too much credit. And then a defense that I think is really, really popped up by the opponents they've played. And I think the Cardinals are a fairly low variance team, and we know who they are. And that's a pretty bad defense, but a fairly solid offense that should be able to move the ball week in and week out.
Yeah, to the point about the opponents, this is who the Chargers have played. Raiders, new quarterback. Panthers with Bryce Young, new quarterback now. Steelers, whether or not they should, new quarterback. Chiefs, the Chiefs are the best opponent they faced, obviously, but still not the 2018 Chiefs offense, certainly, from what we've seen the first few weeks of the season. And then the Broncos, who Bo Nix's stat line last week through the first half was hilarious.
Insane.
He ended up with 220 yards because they kind of aired it out and got some explosives late in the game. But at halftime, it was 22 yards, which he's had a few of those. So to your point, they haven't really been tested outside of that Chiefs game. They haven't really been tested by a good offense yet this year. And if you look at just the personnel on defense, I think they have some guys playing well who we didn't necessarily going into the year think of as these high-end players. Christian Fulton, who they added in the secondary, has been playing well. They've got some guys on the middle of that D-line in Poona Ford and Tierra Tart who are grading out well for us, but then you've got other guys like Aquania, Morgan Fox, who aren't great run defenders. Arizona is one of these teams who, yes, they do need to get the run game going, but they also are an effective rushing offense. It's the passing offense angle that I kind of stumbled on when I was looking up stuff for this game. Was they played much better when they're in these positive situations passing the ball than they have been when playing from behind. And I think that's a little bit down to Kyler Murray. When it's heavy pass script and they need big plays, he forces things a little bit too much. But if you just look at success rate on pass plays, when tied or leading, they're first in the NFL. When trailing, they're 16th, so closer to the middle of the pack. So you could see a situation where if Arizona gets to a lead, we see this really efficient offense that kind of fooled me in the first couple weeks of the season with how they played against the Bills, how they played against the Rams, where it's explosive plays, the run game is clicking, and you could see that in this game if they can kind of get out ahead early. And then it forces the Chargers to pass the ball a little bit more against an Arizona defense that is beatable. So, like, yes, the Chargers like to run the ball. They want to slow down the game. But I think there is a scenario where 43.5, like, there could be some back and forth to this game if the Chargers are forced to go into a heavier pass script like we saw last week against Denver.
Yeah, and I think that's right. Like, I think I was getting at the, like, reliance on the ground game, I think, is more so like the positive situation. But I think just highlights the importance of game script and for each of these teams, and like how this game plays out. And I if I had to kind of take this from a fundamental point of view, I'd say there's a little bit too much credit being given to the Chargers and their kind of potential to go ahead, because I do think they're really drastic splits. And if the Cardinals get up, that would make a huge difference.
What do you like for this game? Just to wrap it up, I know you're kind of on Arizona, but just
I like the Arizona money line, and I also think there are some pretty creative SGP builds we can have here, because I think this is a spot where the market is pricing in the Cardinals' offensive props as if the Chargers have been this great defense. But I think we can kind of see a spike in volume in this game, and whether that's Kyler Murray passing, you can get creative with his rushing stuff as well. A lot of ways to build with just projecting many more yards, I think, than the market's giving credit for.
I'm going to be going back to the well with McBride. He had his best game of the season last year, 8 catches, 96 yards, and really good matchup on paper, just looking at how Los Angeles is structured on defense. Third highest rated zone, and McBride has the second highest receiving grade against zone coverage. The Chargers are allowing the third highest target rate to tight ends, so that's kind of the angle I'm going to be on.